is about to begin. And let's take the prayer, please. And we'll begin together. Master of all worlds, highest power, merciful parent of compassion, in your presence, eternal one, source of strength for us, as you have been for our ancestors, we very humbly acknowledge you. What are we? What is our life that you have done such great kindness to us? Therefore, we place our appeals before you, so that you may forgive and absolve us of all our faults and failings, and our faults never become barriers between us and you. And may it be your desire to prepare our hearts to feel awe and love for you. May you listen to these words of ours, and may you open our encumbered hearts through the mysteries of your Torah. May this, our study, be a source of pleasure before your throne of glory like sweet incense. May you shower down upon us the light of our soul's source and all the ways by which we define ourselves. May the sparks of your holy servants, through whom you have revealed these words to the world, shine and sparkle. May their merit, their ancestors' merit, and the merit of their Torah, their innocence and their holiness, stand for us so as to prevent us from stumbling when we study these words. In their merit, may our eyes be illumined by what we study. In the saying of the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes that I may gaze into wonders of your Torah. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. For it is the Eternal who grants wisdom. It is from his mouth that knowledge and understanding issue forth. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. na 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 We're on page 283 in our volume 2. This is 141A in the first volume of the Zohar. And we're beginning a new section, a new part of the discussion about the life of Yitzchak. And the verse comes from Genesis 26:22. And we have the full verse in the note, note 188. So this is the discussion that the Zohar began already. What does it mean that Isaac is digging wells? What does it mean that Abraham dug wells before him? And this is the striving after the spiritual well springs of God. And here we have the success that he finally achieves. So we'll start with this verse, and then we'll go into Rabbi Chia. So who's going to read for us tonight? Beryl, you got it. Right there. Okay. So start please with the indentation. The verse begins in the on top, and then the continuation is in note 188. So starting with he moved on.
He moved on. He moved on from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. He moved on another well, and they did not quarrel over it. The verse continues, so that he named Rabbaot.
He named it Rehovot. He named the well Rehovot. Expanses.
Expanses, saying, because now Yud-He Vav-He here has provided room for us, and we will be fruitful in the land.
Right. So the word Rachav means wide, broad, opened up. We have the verse in Psalms in Hallel. We say Min Meitzar Karatiya Anani Bamerchavya. That I called out to God from the narrow place, from the constraints, Min Meitzar, and God answered me Bemerchav. Right? That means from the broad openness. God gave me a sense of expansion and a sense of relief, a sense of freedom. So that's Rachav is wide open. So Rechovot means expanses, wide open expanses. And this is the name that Yitzchak gives to this well, where he's no longer beleaguered by the Philistines, his neighbors, who have constantly been hacking him a chinik and stopping up the wells that he has dug before. And now finally, he gets to a place where there is no more quarreling. And so he says, oh, thank God, now we're going to call this the wide open space. The relief that I finally have been seeking is achieved. Okay, so this is the story behind that name and that verse. By the way, that name Rehovot is then used for a city in Israel today that exists Can't hear anything. I don't know what I can tell you. Can everybody else hear me? Yes? Okay, so I'm hearable. I don't know, Meryl. I don't know what the story is. Maybe log out and then log back in. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe your volume on your computer or your phone is not on. I don't know. So back to this. The word Rehovot, the name Rehovot is given to a city in Israel, which is located in what was once biblically Philistine territory. So it takes its association from this verse and from this story. Okay, so we have a person, Yitzchak, struggling and being harassed and failing, and then trying again and again, and finally reaching a place of expansive relief. That's the picture we have. Rabbi Chia.
Rabbi Chia opened, Yud-He Vav-He will guide you, Tamid, continually, and satisfy your soul. Beitzach
Tzachot.
In scorched regions. This verse has been established and discussed, but masters of faith have been fortified by this verse, for it assures them of the world that is coming. Yud-He Vav-He will guide you continually in this world and in the world that is coming.
Okay, so here we have the opening of the drasha. Eventually, we'll find our way back to Yitzchak, but the drasha starts out with this verse from Yeshayahu, chapter 58, and that verse is from. That verse is in chapter 58 of Isaiah, and chapter 58 of Isaiah, that part of chapter 58 is part of the Yom Kippur Haftorah. So this is something that we're looking forward to coming upon pretty soon. And this is the promise that Yeshaya makes if we do that which is demanded by God, not in a ritualistic sense, but in a broader and more fundamental sense. The message, of course, that's famous in, I want to get the Haftorah here for a second. That's famous in this Haftorah is that God desires from us not simply punctilious observance of the fast, but rather that we should be righteous and just and compassionate. So if we look at the verses, I'm just going to read them. They're classic, and this is it's worth reading it. Probably 50 times a day. This is chapter 58 in Isaiah, starting with verse 3, and we're going to go to verse 11 or so. Why, when we fasted, did you not see? When we starved our bodies, did you pay no heed? Because on your fast day, you see to your business and oppress all your laborers. Because you fast in strife and contention, and you strike with a wicked fist. Right? Shamnu, Bagadnu, the fist that you use to show how penitent you are is a wicked fist. Your fasting today is not such as to make your voice heard on high. Is such the fast I desire, a day for people to starve their bodies? Is it bowing the head like a bulrush and lying in sackcloth and ashes? Do you call that a fast? A day when Adonai is favorable? No, this is the fast I desire. To unlock fetters of wickedness, untie the cords of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. It is to share your bread with the hungry, to take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, to clothe them, and do not ignore your own flesh. Then, if you do those things, shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your healing spring up quickly. And your righteousness, sometimes translated your vindicator here in the Machzor, it's vindicator, but I like righteousness better, shall march before you. The presence of the Eternal shall be your rear guard, right? Shall protect your behind. Verse 9, then when you call, the Eternal will answer. When you cry, God will say, here I am. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, evil speech, and you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then shall your light shine in darkness, and your gloom shall be like noonday. And now the verse that we have that Rabbi Chia quotes. The Eternal will guide you always, slaking your thirst in parched places, and give strength to your bones. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters do not fail. Then afterwards, later on, well, you know what? What the heck? We only have a couple more verses till the end of the Haftarah, so why not? Some from your midst shall rebuild ancient ruins. You shall restore foundations laid long ago, and you shall be called repairer of fallen walls, restorer of lanes for habitation. So this is all renewal, restoration. If you refrain from trampling Shabbat, from pursuing your affairs on my holy day, if you call Shabbat delight, oneg, then the Eternal's holy day will be honored, if you call it honored. And if you honor it and go not your ways, nor look to your affairs, nor strike bargains, then you can seek the favor of the Eternal. I will set you astride the heights of the earth, let you enjoy the heritage of your father Jacob, for the mouth of the Eternal has spoken. So that's the Haftorah, and that's the verses from on Yom Kippur that we chant, and that's the verse that is here recited, quoted by Rabbi Chia. God will continually guide you and satisfy your soul, itzach tzachot, in scorched regions or in dried up places. That's the verse. So God will always be there for you. And the Zohar says, and of course, we already know that there are midrashim on this, and it's been explained. This is the Zohar always giving a nod, giving an acknowledgement that there's an earlier set of midrashic traditions that has been developed, and now the Zohar will give its own additional embellishment or turn of it. But I want to actually quote to you the midrash because it's quite beautiful, and it is to a certain extent relevant. And of course, we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, so it's important. So this is like the note says, it's in Vayikra Rabbah, it's in Leviticus Rabbah 34:15. Then shall your light break forth in the morning, and aruchatecha, your healing, shall spring forth speedily. So this is now explained by Rabbi Yirmiyah by Rabbi Elazar, that when it means all of the work that you do will redound to your benefit. All of the striving, all of the effort that you put into living a decent life, it will all in the end come back to be good for you, right? And of course, this is about this idea of striving, this idea of continually to try to work on digging the wells again and again. So consequently, then they quote the rest of these verses. The glory of God will be your protection in the rear. Then shall you call, and God will answer. And then it says, if you take away from your midst, the yoke. What is the yoke? What is the yoke of oppression that's referred to? This refers to discharged bonds. If you have an IOU that has been paid, somebody owed you money, and then it was paid, then tear up the IOU. Don't hold on to it. so that there is no double dipping, so that there is no sense of going after somebody again and again and again. Put forth the finger and speak wickedness. That's the other thing you're supposed to not do. This means that when you see your neighbor fleeing from violent men, then if he goes in one direction, tell them that he went in the other direction. And if he did not go in this direction, say that he did. Right? This is like a classic, movie scene, right? Somebody is running away from people that are trying to do him no good. And then they ask you, where did he go? So the answer is lie. Right? Save this person from oppression. Save this person from the bad guys, and tell them that point your finger in the opposite direction of the way that he went. And then it says, and if you draw out your soul to the hungry, then God will be happy. What does it mean, draw out your soul to the hungry? Rabbi Levi explained this to mean, if you have nothing to give to the hungry person, console him with kind words. Say to him, my soul goes out to you, for I have nothing to give you. Right? Even though I can't help you, I wish I could. Say a nice word. We've had other teachings that this is the difference between tzedakah and gemilut chasadim. Tzedakah, if you have it, you can give tzedakah. If you don't have it, you can't give tzedakah. But gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness, can be done even when you have nothing. To be nice to another person, to say a good word to another person, costs nothing, and it doesn't demand from you an expenditure of any assets, just your soul. Extend your soul to the other person. So, and then it says as follows, if you have done this, then your light shall rise in darkness, your gloom shall be as the noonday. And here's the verse continuation, God will guide you continually and satisfy your soul in tzachtzachot. Rav Tamyumi explained, if you have done this, then you will be just like your creator, who is called Tzach, Dodi Tzach Ve'adom. My beloved is pure white and ruddy, red. So the midrashic idea is that when you act in this way, then you will be satisfied with tzachtzachot. Tzachtzachot meaning here pureness, spiritual white cleanliness, and the image of God. You will be acting in the image of God. The literal translation, tzachtzachot, is tzachiach. This is a place of dryness and of scorched regions. But no, here, not God will satisfy you despite the fact that you're in a dry, parched region, but God will satisfy you by supplying you with tzachtzachot, with spiritual finery. So this is the medrash. So this verse has been established and discussed. And then we have this very interesting clause that the Zohar says, but masters of faith have been fortified by this verse. Right? So masters of faith, these are the people like the students of the Zohar, who have attained a connection and a closeness with God, and have attained a certain kind of apperception of spiritual realities.
Are these maskilim?
Maskilim is another word that's used.
Yeah.
This is Marei Demehemnuta, masters of faith. But it's all the same class of people. But these are people that have faith, and nevertheless, they have been fortified by this verse. Right? They have been strengthened by this verse. So we have here the acknowledgement that just because you're a Marei Demehemnuta, even though you are a master of faith, that doesn't mean that some days are worse than others, some days are better than others. Some days you need a little fortification, you need a little spiritual strengthening, you need a little extra uplift. And where do they go for this uplift? They go to this verse. So they have been fortified by this verse. for it assures them of the world that is coming. Because God will continually, tamid, guide you. So what does continually mean according to the Zohar? What does it mean? There's no stop. Not in this finite world, but we go on into the coming world. God will be close and companioning with you continuously from one world into the next. Okay. So now we have a little extra breaking down these phrases. Okay. Beryl, back to you.
Okay, I have to remember where we are.
We're
I
at
hope we're
They will guide you.
Okay, Yud Hey Vav Hey will guide you. Since the verse says Yud Hey Vav Hey will guide you, why tamid? Continually.
Okay, so
But
let's just, what's the question?
God is eternal.
God is eternal. If God will guide you, it doesn't say God will guide you for 5 minutes, or God will only guide you for the terms of the warranty. God will guide you, right? Hashem roi lo echsar, right? God takes care of me and tends me and guides me, and therefore I lack nothing. So what do we need the tamid? Why do we need tamid? Why do we need always? Why do we need that? Isn't it understood already? So, but
this is tamid, the continual twilight offering embraced by the arm of Isaac. Share in the world that is coming. How do we know this? From David, as is written, he guides me in paths of righteousness. And satisfy your soul, b'tzachot, with dazzles, resplendent speculum, into which all souls delight gazing.
okay. So now we have the answer. What does the word tamid mean? So the answer is that tamid doesn't. It's not just an adverb, adjective, adverb. Always. God will guide you always, continually. So the word tamid here is referring to the tamid shel bein ha'arbayim. This is a sacrifice. There's a korban tamid. Korban tamid is the continual sacrifice that is given twice every day. That's why it's called tamid, because it's always. There's a sacrifice on Shabbat. There's a sacrifice on other holidays. There's a sacrifice if you want to say thank you to God, if you want to ask God for forgiveness. Those are sacrifices that are specific to a particular motivation or a particular time or a particular cause. But then the Torah mandates that we offer a sacrifice to God every day, tamid, like the ner tamid, right? The eternal light, the continual light that always burns in the temple. So we're supposed to give a sacrifice in the morning, tamid shel shachar, tamid shel bein ha'arbayim, and as evening begins to fall. So the Zohar says this is this particular tamid, that God will be with you like the tamid shel bein ha'arbayim, like the tamid of twilight. So the tamid of the morning, what about the tamid of the morning? Tamid of the morning, of course God is with us. The light is out, a new day has dawned, we've been given the gift of life again, we wake up, we say, Modeh Ani, thank you God, you gave me back my soul. By the time we get to the end of the day, we are spiritually challenged, exhausted, depleted. Who knows what's been going on, how many wells we've tried to dig and we failed. Other people have come and stopped up our wells. We've had no energy to even dig the wells. So darkness is falling. And darkness is falling, and yet God is there for you in this tamid. In this moment of twilight, God is still with you. Right? Nevertheless, God is with you again and again and again, even in that moment. Embraced by the arm of Isaac. Right? So this brings us back to Yitzchak a little bit. Yitzchak is the one who knows fear. Yitzchak is the one who knows dread. Yitzchak is this one who keeps on digging wells and fails because the other people around him are stopping up the wells. Yitzchak is the dark half of the black and white cookie. This is Yitzchak's side, and nevertheless, this is God pulling us through and bringing us into the world that is coming, right? Bringing us into Olam Haba, the world that is coming continually, the world that is always coming. The world Olam Haba, as the Zohar understands it, is a world that is continually arriving, that is continually pouring its spiritual life into this world, because otherwise this world would have nothing. So it's pouring itself into this world. And then the Gemara, the Zohar says, and this is related to a verse by King David. This is Psalm 23. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek. God takes me along and guides me and draws me along on the paths of righteousness. The word tzedek is righteousness, and that means that these are paths that go to righteousness. Okay, and this means this is God's presence, God's accompaniment, the Shekhinah aspect of God, which is called tzedek, and this, of course, is where David is located as the exemplar of Malchut, right? Of God's majesty, God's presence overarching across the entire world. So, okay, and then we'll get to the tzachot in a second. I wanted, at this point, I'm going to try something. I've never done this before, and I don't guarantee I'm going to succeed. But I got a little bit of a tutorial from John, so I hope that I'm going to succeed in doing this. What I want to do, correct. So Larry points out that that's the time of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is mincha, the afternoon as things get dark. Yes, good. I wanna play for you a Hasidic nigun, a Bover nigun, for the words Yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Right, that God will guide me in the paths of righteousness for God's own sake, right? The sake of God's name. So I'm going to try to do this. So give me a second because I have to do a couple of steps here. And I need a Chrome tab. And need this. And then I need this. Okay, so that's the nigun. Pretty simple nigun, and it just says again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek laman shmo, which can mean present tense. God guides me in the paths of righteousness for God's own sake, or it can mean, may God guide me in the paths of righteousness. A prayer, a request, may it be so. So this is David's prayer, and this is David's description of God, that God's presence is not simply sitting next to us, but God's accompaniment is also a guiding accompaniment, taking us on a particular path in a particular direction. What's this direction taking us to? It takes us to the tzachtzachot, takes us to the apprehension of the tzachtzachot, a splendid speculum into which all souls delight gazing. So this is an even greater step forward. Just as the Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah said, do these acts of generosity, do these acts of righteousness and compassion and honesty, and you will attain a spiritual stature that is divine. So too, what this is saying is that if we stay the course, God leads us eventually to an apprehension beyond anything that we're capable of now. Beyond anything that is in our ken in this world, but rather something that in the coming world we will attain a vision or a a sense and a sense of being part of tzachot, brilliance, pure, radiant brilliance. The note points out that this means higher levels of God's reality. Right? If we want to use the terms of the Sfirot, so we can attain Shekhinah, and then Shekhinah takes us along, and we will eventually be able to get even higher. The name here is Tiferet, but that's not really the point. The point is not knowing these names. The point is knowing the path. Okay. Any comments, any questions, any reactions, whatever, thoughts? I'm curious a little bit. Does anybody want to say what it meant for them to hear that nigun? Was it just something foreign? Was it something too repetitive? Was it something exotic or curious? Did it have any message? Did it have any reality for you? Sherilyn?
Well, I'm a musical person, and it didn't come through musically. But if I listen in between all the staticky stuff, it was
Yeah,
very
I'm sorry about that, but that's the way it is. Yeah.
right. It was very, very beautiful, and sets the tone for what it's trying to say to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a little bit came through.
Yes.
Okay, good. Better than nothing. Anybody else? All right, so not the most successful experiment. For me, it's a very moving nigun. I'm sorry that it doesn't, go directly into everybody else's heart. For me, it's very heartsig. It's a very heartfelt nigun.
I don't think that it wasn't. It's just that the way it came through, it didn't.
Yeah. No. Okay, I understand. The person singing it, just by just information wise, was a Chazan David Vertiger, who was a survivor, and the story is that he survived because he was he was young. He survived because he had a good voice, and the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, had him sing and enjoyed his singing, and that's how he was able to not be murdered. I knew a person in Israel, a woman, who said that was her experience, that she was able to save her life because the guard at the camp that she was in used to like to have her sing an opera aria. She would sing Ma Paris from Martha. It's a tenor aria, but she would sing it, and the guard loved her singing so much that he gave her a little extra food, and she made it through the war, and eventually she came to Israel. Anyway, so he was a chazan in the States, and his son is already an older guy. Mordechai ben David is a Haredi pop star. And he calls himself Mordechai ben David. He used to call himself Mordechai Vertiger, and then he eventually became Mordechai ben David, and his father is David Vertiger. So this is above Vernick. Okay. Page 284. We're on the next page. Yes, Sherilyn.
Is there a way that after our class we could access that and listen to it, without all the...
You can. I can try to send it to you. It's still a pretty scratchy kind of recording, but
Okay.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on the next paragraph. Beryl, where are you? We need you, Beryl.
Beryl, you have to unmute there.
Sorry, I forgot that I muted myself for the Nagun. And invigorate your bones. Look, the beginning of this verse is inconsistent with its end. If the soul of the righteous is basking in supernal bliss, why invigorate your bones? But they have established this is resurrection of the dead. For the Blessed Holy One will one day revive the dead and mend a person's bones, restoring them in a perfect body, while the light of the soul will be intensified within the resplendent speculum to shine with the body fittingly in full vitality.
Okay, so this is an interesting teaching. We've talked about these things before. The way the Zohar explains this, what do we need that God is going to invigorate our bones? We're not going to have any bones. We're going to be pure spirit, and we're going to be elevated into this realm of the tzachot, well, into the realm of the highest kind of spiritual radiance. That's not even something that we experience now. So if we've transcended physical reality, we've transcended materiality, what does God have to invigorate our bones for? The answer is that even though we get this amazing experience of a kind of a breakthrough, a spiritual breakthrough into a realm that we normally don't. Okay, one second. Even though it's something that we don't experience because we are in a material world, nevertheless, the material world that we transcend needs to be redeemed, needs to be restored, and it's restored with tchiyat hametim, with resurrection. Purpose of resurrection is to give back to the body its full standing, without all of the depredations and without all of the sufferings and without all of the limitations that it experienced during its earthly life. So if we're talking about tzedek, righteousness, the promise of resurrection is the promise of a little bit of payback for the body itself. Right? We don't simply throw away the body and say, well, the body was this unfortunate necessity that we needed while we were down here in the world of division, the world of darkness, the world of evil, the world of finitude. If the body, was the garment of the soul, and the garment needs to be treated with some kind of dignity, and God will, as a result, invigorate your bones. God will give your body its moment in the sun, so to speak, right? Its time of being completely healed, and as I say, able to feel its wholeness without all of the inherent problems and mortality that afflict all physical existence as we know it now. So Larry wrote a question: how can tzachot mean these two different things? The answer is that that's the way it is. That's the whole beauty of Midrash, and that's the whole beauty of Hebrew itself. It depends on what you're looking as the word tzachot is a very unusual word. And the question is, where do we tie it up to? What known words do we tie it up to be to give it meaning? So tzachiach means parched, dried up, but tzach means pure. So it's tzachot. The normal contextual understanding is God will quench your thirst when you're in this dry, parched place. God will be there for you and give you the extra drink of water that you're so desperate for. So that's a perfectly wonderful translation of the meaning. But for the Zohar, there's a long tradition that this tzachot is put into the the light saturated consciousness of the Zohar and of the mystics. Everything ends up becoming related to light. So instead of it being just something dried out and missing water, it's transformed into tzach, dodi tzach v'adom. You have it already in the midrash that I quoted to you before as an appellation for God, as a way of talking about that, because God is so pure, God is so distilled. Many places in the Zohar talks about tzachuta, that the Torah requires tzachuta. The Torah requires a kind of clarity of mind, a kind of spiritual, equipoise, where you get rid of all of the other distractions, and somehow or other the aspaklaria she'ena me'ira, right? The clouded speculum can be peered through, and you get this clarity, this crisp, purity. In some places, the tzachot are actually spiritual entities that pre-exist the sfirot, that are even more refined and more spiritually ethereal than even when we start talking about God as being this kind of quality or that kind of quality. That's already a kind of as it were, a coarsening of God's purity. So the word goes in many different kinds of ways. Without going into all kinds of theories of language, we know that words can have opposite meanings. Freud wrote a whole thing about how words can mean one thing and they can mean the opposite. A classic word in English, sanctions. Sanction, right? So a sanction to punish or a sanction to affirm, right? So it can be one thing or it can be the other. Len.
Yeah, I came across a saying that bears on this. It's tzachli ba'olam haba va'adom li ba'olam hazeh. So bright is the world to come, but red or threatening in this world.
Right, so that comes from.
There's many uses of the word actually in modern Hebrew as well, meaning brighter or clear.
Right. So that's you say Yom Tzach. When the light outside, when the day, there's not a cloud in the sky, everything is like so, and there's no pollution, right? So you say Avir Tzach, a crisp, clean day. So that's like modern Hebrew uses that same word, but that saying that you were just was quoting was an interpretation based on that verse that we had that's in Shir Hashirim that was quoted in the Midrash. Dodi tzach ve'adom. That the Midrash says, what do you mean? Pure white? Then what's with the red? If it's red, what's with the pure white? So the answer is, depends in which realm you're talking about. If you're talking about Olam Hazeh, it's the world of redness. If you're talking about Olam Haba, then everything is white. What do we have in our Slichot service? And I'm not going to take a chance of playing for you a classic Chazanish piece about this, but the verse is Im yiyu chataichem kashanim hasheleg yaldinu. Even if your sins are as red as scarlet, I will whiten them like the purest snow. Right? So the red turns into white. Right? Zrok aleinu mayim tahorim. Right? Throw upon us pure waters, the taharenu, and purify us, kamoshe katuv. Right? So this is God's promise. Okay. So back to here. Okay, so now the Zohar is adding this extra step in the process. Just when we think that we've reached the goal, that we've reached the culmination, and we've come to this spiritual fulfillment that is so unimaginably beautiful, we actually have this kind of extra now piece of the resurrection. And I would just suggest that this is also part of a kind of a form of compassion, right? When we talk about in the Haftorah that we read on Yom Kippur, and we talk about feed the hungry, clothe the naked, take care of people that are needy, right? So we're fortunate. We're okay, but here's a person that we can help out. What I think, in a certain way, the Zohar is placing this idea of resurrection into a context that's similar to that. Once we get to this breakthrough of spiritual clarity and purity, nevertheless, what happened to our needy body? What happened to that nebuch, to that poor figure that was hungry all the time, that needed clothes all the time, that needed shelter all the time? That's us in our previous life, in our physical life. So do we forget about them, and do we say, okay, good, bye-bye, we don't need you anymore. We've made it. We're the 1%ers. We're the spiritual 1%ers. So what Tchiyat HaMeitim says is, bring the body into the sun. Bring the body into the gloriousness of experiencing God's healing sunshine. Shemesh Marpa is the way that the prophet calls it, the healing sunshine. I was already anticipating somebody's going to ask, no, so you suffer for 120 years in this world, and then you get into the world to come and you get resurrected, and then so does that make up for it? How long does it how long do you get to be in the in the limelight? Do you get your 15 minutes of a spotlight and that's it? Is that payoff? Is that justice? Is that enough to make up for it? So I don't know. I haven't been there. I don't know. But the image that that I'm trying to hold on to is a contradictory image, but it's a transformation of the physical existence into some kind of infinite bliss that physical existence by definition is incapable of. So it's really having it both ways. It's bringing the physical out of that limitational context and into a context of boundlessness, right? Rechovot, expanses. So then everything that happened before is so limited and so trivial in comparison. All right. So it is written. Carol, back to you.
So it is written, you will be like a watered garden. What does this mean? Its supernal waters never cease for all eternity. This garden, watered by them, is saturated constantly.
Okay, so the garden again is the receptacle, right? It's what receives the irrigation, what receives all of the nurturance that gets showered into it. It gets the planting, and it gets the nurturing and so on. So this, of course, is the receptacle in the divine realm. Is Shechina. Shechina is the vessel, right? That contains all of this life-giving water. So the waters are eternal, the waters are constant, but the idea, again, we come up to this idea of a limitation vis-a-vis the eternal, right? The eternally, continually, tamid, flowing light of God is given by God the opportunity or the possibility of being held, because otherwise it should be like so much else that we have. There's supposedly, I know nothing about this, but supposedly right now there are untold billions and trillions and zillions of energy particles that are coursing right through my body without stopping. Right? My body is completely ineffectual as a barrier to the energy that's flowing through at every second. So how much more so if we're talking about divine energy? How could you possibly imagine that divine energy could ever be received by anything or by anyone? How could this continuous non-stop flow ever be stopped? How could it ever be contained? That's what Shekhinah is. Right? That's what Shekhinah is, the final repository of all of this divine energy before it then gets dispersed into the world. But that's what's giving it the possibility of being then received anywhere else. And of course, Shekhinah gets that ability to receive from where? From Yitzchak, right? From the Midat Hadin, from the limitational aspect of God, the left-hand side. The left-hand side is the receiving side and the containing side. So that's what we had before as well. The Tamid Shel Bein Harbayim, the twilight Tamid, is the Tamid of when we have the continuous flow, as it says here. What is it? What's the word here? Embraced by the arm of Isaac. Right? Shekhinah is endowed with the possibility of being able to be a receptacle, because that's Isaac's essence. Isaac is the one who accepts what God gives him, what his father decides is what's necessary for him. He accepts also what we have here. I keep talking about how Isaac is no wimp. He's constantly striving. He's constantly digging new wells. But that in itself is an act of acceptance. He's not declaring a mutiny, or he's not declaring a stop and saying, I've had it, enough. What am I doing? This is all just pointless. So he accepts that he needs to do it. That act of acceptance is to, like you accept a gift, you take it. It's a taking. So the ability to be able to receive something should not be, to coin a phrase, taken for granted. Right? Some people can't receive. I think some of us, have encountered people like that, and maybe we have aspects of our own selves that are like that. To have difficulty receiving what somebody else will give to you. That's a problem for many people. So to know how to receive, to know when to receive, to know what to receive, this is Isaac. And Isaac gives that gift to Shekhinah. And if not for that gift, then all the good that is pouring forth would all end up just keep on flowing. And none of us would have any of it. None of us would have one iota of an experience of it, because it would just course right through us without stopping. Okay. Like a spring.
Like a spring, that flowing, gushing river whose waters never cease.
Right.
Come and see.
This is just locating that you will be like a water garden and like a spring. This is the river, right? V'nahar yotzei me'eden. At the beginning of Genesis, we're going to read it in a couple of weeks, right? A river flows out of Eden, lahashkot et hagan, to irrigate, to quench the garden, right? To water the garden. So that's the stream, that's the water, and that's never ceasing. Never ceasing. Come and see.
Come and see. A well of flowing water. This is a supernal mystery within the mystery of faith, a well containing a spring, filled by that spring, two rungs that are one, male and female, fittingly.
Okay. So I was just preparing, the way for this paragraph. Right? A well is a receptacle, right? A spring flows, right? Wells contain the waters that flow into it. This is the mystery, right? The mystery of the two of them together. For the Zohar, the flow is valenced as male, and the receiving is valenced as female. So that's the next part of the mystery, right? That this paradox is actually, from the perspective of biology and of human experience, actually the basis of all life. The fact that we have the capability of uniting male and female to create life is, for us, like, yeah, that's not problematic. That's fundamental. And yet, what the Zohar says is, think about it as a mystery. Think about it as something that really doesn't necessarily make sense. Right? That there are two different forces here that are in some way absolutely opposite. Why should opposites be able to unite? Why should any things that are different ever be able to be put together? But it happens. And not only does it happen, but our lives depend on it, literally. Like without that possibility, we wouldn't be alive. Without that possibility, we wouldn't be able to continue to be alive. Without the possibility of the opposites of divine and human being able to unite, there would be no hope. So on every level, the unity of opposites, that tzach tzachot can mean two opposite things or two very different things, is part of the idea that the world is composed of the mystery of uniting opposites, the mystery of uniting things that are different. Okay. A little bit more. We're going to be able to go a little bit more.
Come and see. That spring and well are one, all called well, for the inflowing fountain never ceases and the well is filled. Whoever gazes at this well will gaze at the mystery of supernal faith. This is the symbol of the patriarchs striving to dig a well of water within supernal mystery. One must not separate fountain from well. All is one.
Okay, so now we're getting closer and closer. In the next paragraph, we'll have the citation from Yitzchak again. But here the Zohar says, so that's what this is all about. All of these stories of Abraham and Yitzchak digging wells, they're all about this spiritual quest. All about trying to make the connection between the well and the spring. Right? And knowing that the spring in and of itself can never be experienced unless it's put into a well. And knowing that a well in and of itself will dry up unless it's connected to the spring. So they have to be put together. But the spring comes first. The spring is the very ultimate source. The well is simply a construct, a human construct, to avail ourselves of the waters, right? The waters are flowing, and the waters will flow whether we make a well or we don't make a well. One second, and I'll look at what you're saying. But human beings need the well. So we need to dig the well. And we need to dig the well, right? The well doesn't just come by itself. Yes, sometimes we're lucky enough to happen upon a stream, to happen upon a natural source of water. But what if we're in tzach tzachot? What if we're in parched, dried out regions. Then what do? If we just depend on finding the streams, we'll die. So we have to dig for the water, right? What seems at first like it's a dried out place, but underneath, subterraneously, under the ground, there's a spring. There's a spring flowing. You have to dig for it. And then you have to understand that spring is not just in that one place where you found the water, where you struck water, right? The spring is coming from other places. You are just connecting up to that spring. So wait, I want to see, I need to look at what you wrote. So Mark says, if the mystery is combining opposites, why is there prohibitions of mixing? Okay, so excellent question. Right? If I'm making such a big deal about that, the opposites should unite, then it should be a mitzvah, for us to actually do all of the mixing that the Torah prohibits. Right? What's the story about creation in general? We're going to read in the beginning of Breshit. Everything is all mixed together, and what does God do? The whole creation is portrayed within the Torah as making distinctions, as separate the water from the earth, and make everything leminehu, according to its own species. Right? And then, of course, the Torah continues, which is what Mark is alluding to. Don't mix this species with that species, and so on and so forth. So, why? Adarabah. On the contrary, it should be a sacred act to do those things. So this is a big question, and we're not going to solve it in another minute or two. But the tradition actually answers it in two contradictory ways. Shocking. There's the contradiction again. So what it does is it, on the one hand, it's very vehemently on guard against those kinds of mixing of prohibited species, and at the same time, it sees a place and a time when these prohibited mixtures will not be prohibited anymore. So a simple example, for instance, is shatnez. So shatnez is a classic example, right? Shatnez is a classic example of you can't mix wool and linen. Right? For whatever reason, I don't care. Right now, we don't have to deal with what the reasons are. But it's a strict prohibition not to mix wool and linen together. By the way, somebody sent me a joke not too long ago that that a person, we all have to mask up, very important. And a person got a mask, and unfortunately, the mask was made out of a mix of wool and linen. And the person ended up suffering from shortness of breath. Oh, Craig is not taking it. The person that shared the joke with me apologized. But there it is. So anyway, back to this for a half a second. So wool and linen are prohibited. Guess what the garment of the high priest is made out of? Wool and linen mixed together. So in the realm of the absolute sacred, there are moments, and I don't use that as a temporal thing, but there are spots, moments, where the prohibitions are overwritten, or where the prohibitions never existed to begin with, and the prohibition is the opposite. Don't think that you're in the temple all the time. Don't think that you're a high priest all the time. So you can't wear shatnez. So we'll have to leave it for now at that. Okay? All right. So Zeig sind stark. Hopefully we'll be able to make it again next week, right before Rosh Hashanah. But still, I want to give everybody my own wishes for a sweet year. And we should say not Shana Tova. We should say Shana Tova Yoter. a better, not just a good year, a better year than this past year. Let's all have a better year. Have a year of health and many, many blessings to everybody. All right.
Amen.
Amen.
And then
Amen.
Sei gesund und stark.
Sure.
Thank you.